Hey guys, welcome to the Bitcoin Fortress podcast, helping you increase your financial freedom. This is episode 150, recorded here on January 19th, 2025. This podcast is for entertainment only and is not investing advice, so please do your own homework. Well, we got a lot to cover this week. For starters, we are at block 879957, Moscow time 9:53. Fees are 4, 5, and 6 for low, uh, medium, and high currently. We'll get started with the market news update and outlook. Then we'll get into the weekly top Bitcoin news. There's lots to cover there. We'll talk about this week's featured post on the Bitcoin Fortress Substack, and we'll do shout outs on Fountain, and then we'll wrap it up. So, with that, let's jump right in with the market news. Wall Street on Friday surged to its best weekly performance since the post election rally in November 2024. After a topsy turvy December and a rocky start to the new year, the bulls came roaring back over the past couple of days. Wednesday, in particular, saw the three major averages post their best intraday advance since November 6, 2024. While the bond market also saw some much needed relief, the primary driver of the moves was the core consumer price index, or the CPI reading for December 2024, which surprised to the downside. The favorable inflation data reignited bets that the Federal Reserve will continue to ease monetary policy. Sentiment this week was also boosted by a strong start to the earnings season in the form of solid quarterly results from major banks. JP Morgan, Citi, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and Morgan Stanley all delivered quarterly beats driven by investment management activity and trading gains in what was a massive year for markets in 2024. The earnings calendar will turn into a deluge from next week with some of the biggest companies in the world on deck. Also in focus will be US President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration on January 20th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Investors continue to be concerned about the inflationary effects of Trump's proposed policies, including tariffs. For the week, the benchmark S&P 500 advanced 2.9%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite climbed 2.5%. The blue chip Dow surged 3.7%. Looking ahead, Wall Street will see a holiday-shortened week ahead, but it will still be plenty busy. Monday marks Martin Luther King Jr. Day and also Donald Trump's inauguration as U.S. president. Sentiment has been pressured by concerns over the inflationary impact of his policies, and investors will be paying close attention to the executive orders announced in the first days and weeks of the new administration. The earnings season will kick into second gear from next week with the deluge of quarterly reports from some of the biggest companies in the world. High profile names include Netflix, Procter and Gamble, Johnson and Johnson, American Express, and Verizon. Market participants will also be watching the S&P 500 as the benchmark index nears record levels following this week's boost from favorable inflation data. All right, jumping into the Bitcoin news. First off, here we have from No BS Bitcoin, block 879835, important news of the week. Always a good source. Peter Woolley and Gregory Maxwell were awarded the Finney Freedom Prize by the Human Rights Foundation for the 2012 to 2016 era, recognizing their contributions to Bitcoin's usability, scalability, and privacy. And you can learn more about the prize here, and there's a link in the article. Vintium issues grant to PlebHash for advancing the Stratum v2 protocol. The nonprofit Bitcoin Research and Development Center, dedicated to supporting Bitcoin developers in Brazil and the wider Latin America region, has announced its fourth grantee, PlebHash, in acknowledgement of his significant contributions to the Stratum v2 protocol. and his initiatives to promote the decentralization of Bitcoin mining. Clubhash exemplifies the values we strive to promote at Vintium: collaboration, innovation, and dedication to developing open source solutions to strengthen the Bitcoin ecosystem. We are excited to support his work and look forward to the impact he will have on the community, said the organization. John Galt joins the BDK Foundation as the latest grantee. John will be working on developing our membership program, partnerships, and onboarding new members. Reach out at hello@bitcoindevkit.org, said the organization. Donald Trump is set to sign a flurry of executive orders on January 20th. According to the Washington Post, the U.S. president-elect will issue a series of executive orders, some of which are intended to strengthen the cryptocurrency sector and modify existing banking policies. Trump to designate cryptocurrency as a national priority. President-elect Donald Trump is reportedly preparing to issue an executive order to prioritize Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as a key policy issue and include industry experts in his administration. The executive order, which could come as soon as Monday, is expected to designate cryptocurrencies as a national priority, directing government agencies to collaborate with the industry on policy issues and potentially pause ongoing litigation involving industry activities, Bloomberg reported, citing sources familiar with the matter. So we'll get into that a little bit more later. Coin Center fellow Michael Llewellyn sues the DOJ over criminalization of software development. Michael Llewellyn, a Coin Center fellow and smart contract security expert, has filed a lawsuit against the Department of Justice for their restrictive interpretation of unlicensed money transmission statutes. Michael should be free to build and publish the brilliant software he's been working on, free from fear of unjust persecution, and the contrary position taken by the Department of Justice in the Tornado Cash and Samurai Wallet prosecutions is unconstitutional and anti-innovation, said Coin Center in a blog post. Senator Cynthia Lummis demands FDIC to halt destruction of Operation Choke Point 2.0 materials. According to the senator, whistleblowers from the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation have raised concerns about the destruction of materials related to the agency's digital asset activities. They allege that management is closely monitoring staff access to these materials to prevent their disclosure to the Senate before they are destroyed. Furthermore, some employees have reportedly faced threats of legal action to deter them from speaking out. The FDIC's alleged efforts to destroy and conceal materials from the U.S. Senate related to Operation Choke Point 2.0 is not only unacceptable, it is illegal. If it is uncovered that anyone within the FDIC has knowingly destroyed materials or sought to obstruct the oversight functions of the Senate, it will result in swift criminal referrals to the U.S. Department of Justice, Lummis said in a public letter. Lummis also expressed urgent concern in a letter to the director of the U.S. Marshals Service regarding their plan to dispose of nearly 70,000 Bitcoin seized from the Silk Road case. Cost basis zero. Probably don't want to sell it. Don't be like Germany and be paper hands. Tom Emmer has been appointed as vice chairman of the House Subcommittee on Digital Assets, Finance, Technology, and Artificial Intelligence. With President Trump in the White House and Gary Gensler confined to the waste bin of Washington, we have an excellent opportunity to ensure that the future of digital assets is guided by Americans with American values, said the congressman on Tuesday. BitMEX has been issued an additional $100 million fine for violations of the Bank Secrecy Act that occurred between 2015 and 2020. Whilst we are disappointed to learn of the imposition of an additional financial penalty, the amount is substantially less than what the Department of Justice has been pursuing us over 3 years, the company said in a blog post. Block Inc. fined $80 million for insufficient money laundering controls in Cash App. Block Inc. has agreed to pay an $80 million fine to 48 state financial regulators for inadequate anti-money laundering protocols in Cash App. As part of the settlement, Block Inc. will hire an independent consultant to review and report on its Bank Secrecy Act and anti-money laundering program. Additionally, the company has agreed to implement corrective actions internally, as announced by the Conference of State Bank Supervisors. Iran's central bank blocks payment gateways to cryptocurrency exchanges amid currency crisis. The bank has unexpectedly blocked payment gateways for cryptocurrency exchanges, restricting citizens to the weakening national currency without prior notice or preparation. This action specifically targets the Iranian rial, payment channels used by digital currency exchanges, although the ability to withdraw funds remains functional. These restrictive and destructive decisions in technology policymaking not only eliminate Iran's limited opportunity for economic growth through new technologies, but also drive away the country's most important asset, its capable human capital, said the industry leaders in an open letter to President Masoud Pezeshkian. Operators of Blender and Sinbad custodial Bitcoin mixers arrested and charged with money laundering. By allegedly operating these mixers, the defendants made it easier for state-sponsored hacking groups and other cyber criminals to profit from offenses that jeopardize both public safety and national security, said Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General Brent Whibble. New CPFB rulemaking makes no distinction between custodial and self-custody wallets. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has issued a notice of proposed rulemaking to reinterpret the Electronic Funds Transfer Act to include cryptocurrency activities. However, the proposal does not differentiate between cryptocurrency services offered by trusted intermediaries, which could be subject to consumer protection regulations, and software tools for self-securing digital assets, which are considered protected speech and should not be subject to regulatory permissions, writes Coin Center. Uh-oh, here they come. South African arrested for transferring $606 in Bitcoin to an alleged terrorist-linked organization in 2017. According to the Hawks, a branch of the South African Police Service, that's an interesting name. The defendant was apprehended on January 3rd, 2025, after a multi-year investigation. During his bail hearing on January 10th, 2025, he stated his intention to plead not guilty, asserting that the case against him had been exaggerated, reports Bitcoin KE. A new strategic Bitcoin reserve bill introduced in Texas Senate. The act creates a special fund to own and hold Bitcoin, allowing the legislature to direct up to 1% of general revenue for Bitcoin purchases. In December, Representative Giovanni Capriglione proposed a different Bitcoin Strategic Reserve proposal, HB 1598, in the House, which outlines a plan to establish a Bitcoin reserve within the state treasury. If passed and signed into law, the Senate Bill SB 778 would make Texas the first state in the nation to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. This would position our state at the forefront of the digital economy, driving growth and securing economic freedom for our great state, said the Texas State Senator Charles Schwartner. Strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation in New Hampshire and North Dakota. New Hampshire and North Dakota have introduced legislation to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve, indicating a rising interest among state lawmakers in diversifying their state treasuries with Bitcoin. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Act introduced in Oklahoma. Representative Cody Maynard introduced the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act, aiming to make Oklahoma a leader in sound money principles and advanced fiscal policy. HB 1203 would permit Oklahoma's state savings accounts and pension funds to invest in digital assets like Bitcoin. Bitcoin represents freedom from bureaucrats printing away our purchasing power. As a decentralized form of money, Bitcoin cannot be manipulated or created by government entities. It is the ultimate store of value for those who believe in financial freedom and sound money principles, Maynard said. Kenya is preparing to legalize cryptocurrencies, according to Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mabadi, indicating a shift in government stance. Although cryptocurrencies have been banned in the country, widespread public use has persisted underground, circumventing the restrictions. Can't stop it. The government of Kenya is committed to creating the necessary legal and regulatory framework in order to leverage opportunities presented by VAs and VASPs while managing the resultant risks, Mabadi said. I think they've been banning and unbanning Bitcoin for years now, so we'll see what they do next. BlackRock has launched the iShares Bitcoin ETF in Canada. The ETF, trading under the ticker IBIT, replicates Bitcoin's price performance by investing in the US listed iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF. All of the Bitcoin purchased via the ETF is held with Coinbase Prime. I'd be a little worried about that, but that's just me. Corporate Bitcoin purchases are set to grow exponentially in 2025, says Bitwise. Matt Haugen, Chief Investment Officer of Bitwise, shared an investor note predicting that over the next 12 to 18 months, hundreds of companies will include Bitcoin in their treasury reserves due to improved Bitcoin accounting standards. The latest publicly announced Bitcoin purchases include Microstrategy, a Bitcoin development company, acquired another 2,530 Bitcoin for $243 million. It currently holds 450,000 coins. Semler Scientific bought 237 Bitcoin and now holds 2,321 coins on its balance sheet. Genius Group has purchased an additional $5 million worth of Bitcoin and currently holds 372 Bitcoin, acquired for approximately $35 million. Remix Point, a Tokyo listed energy consulting firm, has announced a purchase of 33.34 Bitcoin. The company now holds 333.19 coins. Heritage Distilling adopts Bitcoin as a strategic asset. The company has released its Bitcoin treasury policy statement and said it will accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. Italian bank Intesa Sanpaolo has purchased 11 Bitcoin for approximately 1 million euros. And there's a whole table here with a list of companies that have adopted Bitcoin treasury or are planning on adopting Bitcoin treasury. And it's pretty funny because a year or two ago, you just didn't hear about this. So this is obviously a big, big sign of adoption. Komeinu secured $75 million from Blockstream's venture arm in a Series B round. The UK-based regulated digital asset service firm announced the completion of its Series B fundraising with a $75 million investment from Blockstream Venture arm, subject to regulatory approval. Blockstream's co-founder and CEO Adam Back, director Peter Paul Party, and advisor Nicholas Brand will join Kameinu's board as part of the deal. Having a closely aligned technology partner like Blockstream, one of the original visionaries in the digital assets ecosystem, is testament to our determination to become the go-to provider of digital asset services for Bitcoin and the institutional market, as well as increasing institutional adoption, said Paul Frost Smith, co-CEO at Komeinu. Folger Ventures led a $58 million funding round for the crypto bank Signum. Signum, already licensed in Luxembourg, Switzerland, and Singapore, intends to use the new capital to expand further into the European market and establish a regulated presence in Hong Kong. Tether sues Swan Bitcoin over mining venture dispute. The dispute centers around the 2022 Bitcoin mining joint venture, 2040 Energy. Tether is reported to have provided full funding and owns 80% of the venture, while Swan operated the international mining team and holds a 20% stake. The case is now advancing in the High Court of England and Wales. Throughout our relationship with Swan, Tether has consistently acted in good faith, supported mutual business objectives, and adhered to all relevant agreements. Conversely, Swan has acted recklessly, and their actions have resulted in significant breaches by them of the agreements between us. Consequently, we have been compelled to take necessary measures to protect our investment, said Tether in a statement. Coinbase unveils public beta of on-chain reputation API. The public surveillance tool is meant to provide a reputation score between -100 and +1,000 for wallet addresses, ENS, and base name IDs, offering a quote, directional indication of its reputation to, quote, evaluate transaction trustworthiness. Coinbase has also announced the launch of Bitcoin-backed loans using its own shitcoin protocol, Base. These loans are not backed by Bitcoin, nor are they even on the Bitcoin blockchain, writes Guillaume Girard for Bitcoin Magazine. Yeah, there's probably better options out there. White House issues an executive order to bolster federal cybersecurity. U.S. President Joe Biden has signed a comprehensive cybersecurity directive aimed at enhancing the government's monitoring of networks, procurement of software, utilization of artificial intelligence, and penalties for foreign hackers. This 40-page executive order, I wonder if he even read it, is the Biden administration's last push to leverage AI for security, introduce digital identities for U.S. citizens, and address vulnerabilities that have allowed foreign actors to infiltrate U.S. government systems. It is unclear if President-elect Donald Trump will pursue these cybersecurity initiatives after taking office on Monday. Well, I guess we're going to find out, but that really sounds, I don't know, Orwellian. U.S. government to return over 94,000 bitcoins stolen in 2016 to Bitfinex. According to a court document filed this week, the U.S. government states that more than 94,000 bitcoins stolen by Ilya Lichtenstein and Heather Morgan during the 2016 Bitfinex hack should be returned to the exchange. I guess that means that the people are going to get their coins back. We'll see. Turkish man attacked and forced to transfer 285,000 in cryptocurrency in Thailand. The victim was assaulted by a gang of three people who stole 9.9, I think it's million baht, or $285,000 worth of cryptocurrency, as well as his laptop. Singapore blocks access to Polymarket following Taiwan and France. The country's gambling regulatory authority has directed local internet service providers to block access to the prediction market platform. The agency is yet to make a public announcement on the issue. The UK government is proposing a ban on ransomware payouts. The plan aims to prohibit public sector bodies, including schools and the NHS, from making cryptocurrency ransomware payments. This proposal, part of a consultation launched by the Home Office, seeks to make these institutions less attractive targets for hackers. What are you going to do, though, if you can't get your stuff? I guess you're just going to have to start from scratch again. You won't get access to your data. In 2024, North Korea stole from over $659 million worth of cryptocurrencies, according to a joint statement by Japan, South Korea, and the United States on Tuesday. North Korean-backed hackers stole at least $659 million through various cryptocurrency heists in 2024, and they also deployed IT workers to infiltrate blockchain companies as insider threats. So get your coins off the exchange, folks. Applications to the Sovereign Engineering Cohort 4 are now open. The fourth edition, titled Building It Right, is set to take place from March 3rd to April 11th, 2025. You can learn more about it here, and there's a link in the show notes in the article. The article will be included in the show notes. Okay, moving on. This is from Hodler's Digest, January 12th through 18th, from Cointelegraph.com. We will take a spin through this and skip over the shitcoinery unless it's funny. Coinbase CEO calls on countries to establish Bitcoin reserves. Brian Armstrong, CEO of US-based cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase, has endorsed plans for global leaders to create Bitcoin strategic reserves. In a January 17th blog post on economic freedom, Armstrong said cryptocurrencies were the next chapter of capitalism, offering suggestions for policymakers to integrate digital assets into their economies in 2025. Coinbase CEO's ideas included crypto-friendly laws, government efficiency, special economic zones, and the establishment of a Bitcoin reserve as a hedge against inflation. The next global arms race will be in the digital economy, not space, Armstrong speculated. Bitcoin could be as foundational to the global economy as gold and will become central to national security in a world where holdings of Bitcoin can shift the balance of power among nation states. SEC charges Digital Currency Group for misleading investors. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission has charged Digital Currency Group, DCG, and former Genesis Global Capital CEO Soichiro Michael Moro with misleading investors about the financial health of Genesis in the aftermath of the Three Arrows Capital collapse. According to the January 17th filing, DCG and Moro have agreed to pay a combined $38.5 million in civil penalties, with DCG liable for $38 million and Moro liable for $500,000. Moro and DCG agreed to the civil penalties without admitting to or denying any violations of the Securities Act of 1933. The settlement is the latest chapter in the legal saga of Genesis, which filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in January 2023 due to a 2022 default by 3AC, a former borrower of Genesis. And yes, that was a total shit show. Bad situation. Trump plans executive order making crypto national priority, according to a report. I think we heard about this before, so we'll skip over that. U.S. government says funds from 2016 hack should return to Bitfinex. Also heard about that. NFTs just had their worst performing year since 2020, according to DApp Radar. Haha. Next. And let's see. Top prediction of the week: Bitcoin price still on track for $180,000 in 2025, according to an interview with Philb. Bitcoin hitting $130,000 would be a great result for the current bull market, pseudonymous longtime trader and analyst Philb says. In his latest interview with Cointelegraph, the co-founder of trading suite Trader gave his predictions on where Bitcoin price action may be headed this cycle. Bitcoin is bouncing back after a trip to 2-month lows and is holding well above 100,000 as of January 17th, per data from Cointelegraph Markets Pro and TradingView. For Philb, good things lie in wait, especially with the incoming U.S. government administration under President-elect Donald Trump. Pro-Bitcoin and pro-crypto policies could well offer a short-term market impulse, but it may not be all smooth sailing. Any talk of trade wars, for instance, could strike a punishing blow to the risk asset bull run. That said, Bitcoin US dollar should lead the pack, with Bitcoin even hitting new highs in crypto market dominance, Philb said. I see no evidence based on previous cyclical data which would imply that Bitcoin is topped for now. Clearly, it might be different this time, but I think there's a reasonable argument that Bitcoin could go on toward the $180,000 target I had been looking at in early 2023, Philb told Cointelegraph. FUD of the week. Let's see, we already heard about this one. U.S. consumer finance watchdog sued for treating digital wallets like banks. That is, I agree, complete bullshit. Uh, Upbit crypto exchange receives suspension notice in South Korea. Upbit, one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges in South Korea, has reportedly received a suspension notice for alleged Know Your Customer violations. Uh-oh. The Financial Intelligence Unit of South Korea's Financial Services Commission has notified Upbit of possible punitive measures, according to a January 16th report by Naver. As part of the measures, the authorities seek to suspend new user registrations on Upbit for 6 months, with existing users unaffected. I don't know. Get your coins off the exchange. That's all I can say. Um, Yuga Labs faces backlash over CryptoPunks IP sale rumors. Oh, that sounds like an NFT garbage. Who cares? And that wraps up Hodler's Digest. Moving on. This is from Decrypt. This was posted January 18th. This week in Bitcoin. Bitcoin blasts off ahead of Trump inauguration. So might be a little duplicate news here, but let's see what Decrypt has to say about the week in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin finished the week strong, briefly surging above 105,000 per coin just before Donald Trump, who cast himself as a crypto-friendly candidate in the presidential race, gets inaugurated for his second term on Monday. It started off the week sluggish, however, selling at a 2-month low below 90,000 as traders were cautious over what the Federal Reserve plans for interest rates this year. But new data dropped Wednesday showing that inflation indeed was up at the end of the year, with the consumer price index up 2.9% in the 12 months through December. That, according to traders, made another Fed rate cut seem more likely. Bitcoin tends to do well in a low interest rate environment, or has done in the past. So if the Fed sees more reason to lower the borrowing costs when Bitcoin could become more attractive, the asset then broke past 99,000 before continuing on to retake the $100,000 milestone and continue flying. News that Trump would issue crypto-related orders on his first week in office also helped push the coin to where it is now. ETF flows, a lot of money, but not all, flowing into the Bitcoin space is coming in via investors who buy shares in the new exchange traded funds. The world's biggest economy has the most financial might, and big flows into the products tend to swing market sentiment. At the start of the week and end of last week, hundreds of millions left the funds as investors were apparently spooked about what the central bank would do next. But then on Wednesday, the tide turned and a total of $755 million hit the funds. Farside Investors data shows. Thursday was also an epic day with investors throwing another 626 million into the investment vehicles, but Friday topped them all. The price of Bitcoin wasn't the only thing that rose this week. The mining difficulty of the biggest cryptocurrency also hit a new high. It currently stands at 110.45 trillion, meaning it's harder than ever before to mine a new block. In the world of mining, computers around the world race to solve complex mathematical problems in order for new blocks to be added to the blockchain. And if it gets harder for miners to complete the task, then the network is working as it should. In other news, Department of Justice said the recovered Bitcoin that's stolen in the notorious 2016 Bitfinex hack should be returned to the exchange. The Fed said there were no victims in the case where Ilya Lichtenstein stole about 120,000 Bitcoin, today worth over $12 billion, while his wife, rapper and social media personality Heather Razzle-Khan Morgan, helped launder some of the funds. About 90,000 Bitcoin was ultimately recovered and could go back to Bitfinex, which said that it had made customers whole years ago via a repayment program. Not every customer agrees with that perspective, however, particularly with Bitcoin skyrocketing in value in the years since. Interesting. So maybe the customers won't be getting their Bitcoin because they already got their Bitcoin or they got dollars, but it's not, obviously, they didn't get what the Bitcoin's worth today. Widely regarded as the boogeyman of crypto, SEC Chair Gary Gensler is on his way out and will soon be replaced. In an interview Tuesday, the regulator told CNBC that while he views many cryptocurrencies as unregulated securities, Bitcoin may in the future be traded like commodities such as gold. Alluding to how gold has been traded for 10,000 years, he said, "We have Bitcoin, it might be something else in the future as well." Sources told Decrypt that the incoming president is planning to issue a crypto-related executive order to help the industry on his first day in office. A raft of reforms are being pondered, some not previously reported, which could include instructing regulators to establish a crypto working group to get on the same page about the industry. The incoming president campaigned on a promise to help Bitcoiners and the space as a whole. And he's pretty much kept his promises last time, so will be interesting to watch that one. And America's biggest crypto exchange, Coinbase, has started Bitcoin-backed loans again after discontinuing them 2 years ago. The loans allow investors to use their digital gold as collateral and borrow up to $100,000 in the USDC stablecoin instantly. The new service will be powered by a third-party Morpho, a lending protocol on Base, and Ethereum Layer 2 network that Coinbase incubated. Ugh, sounds terrible. I think there's probably better ways to get your Bitcoin loans if you really want to do that. All right, next up, Crypto Potato. This is from, posted today. IRS to require third-party reporting on crypto transactions starting in 2025. Starting in 2025, cryptocurrency transactions on centralized exchanges will fall under new IRS reporting requirements, marking a significant shift for digital asset investors. These changes mean that transactions conducted through custodial accounts on platforms like Coinbase and Gemini will now be subject to third-party reporting for the first time. According to a CNN report, the Internal Revenue Service has specified that brokers, which include custodial trading platforms, certain wallet providers, digital asset kiosks, and some payment processors, must report these transactions. The information will be captured on a new form, the 1099 DA. Oh, look at that digital asset. Isn't that clever? That's so clever. Which will detail all purchases and sales of digital assets. The form will be sent to both the taxpayer and the IRS by early 2026. Taxpayers will be required to include this information in their 2025 tax returns. Failure to do so could result in discrepancies as the IRS will already have this data on file. Cost basis reporting, which refers to the original purchase price of a digital asset, will not be required from brokers until the 2026 tax year. Jessalyn Dean, Vice President of Tax Information at Legible, explained that this delay may affect taxpayers' ability to calculate taxable gains accurately. It is important to note that the cost basis is crucial for determining the gains or losses from asset sales. For those engaging in decentralized platform transactions, the timeline is different. Peer-to-peer transactions on platforms like Uniswap and SushiSwap will not be subject to third-party reporting until 2027. These platforms will report only the gross proceeds of transactions as they do not have access to the original purchase price necessary to calculate the cost basis. Meanwhile, investors in spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds will also be affected by reporting requirements this year. ETF providers will issue forms such as the 1099-B or 1099-DA, which will include not only the proceeds from sales, but also any taxable events that occur within the fund. Dean even advised Bitcoin ETF investors to seek guidance from tax advisors as taxable gains or losses can arise from the fund's internal management activities, even if the underlying assets are held long term. Huh, didn't know that. That's interesting. The latest development comes less than a month after the IRS introduced automatic relief for centralized finance users facing new crypto tax regulations in 2025, requiring no immediate action. This relief addresses complications from Section 6045 custodial broker rules, which required CeFi brokers to report transactions using specific accounting methods. Defaulting to FIFO, first in, first out, could increase tax liabilities, but taxpayers can bypass this by using their own records or crypto tax software. Starting in 2026, users must select an accounting method with their brokers to avoid default FIFO treatment. Ugh, taxes. And of course, it is tax season here in the United States again. And Caesar will take what is Caesar's. Next up, this is from Bitcoin.com news. This was posted, looks like 2 days ago. Trump may be considering Solana, Ripple, and US dollar coin alongside Bitcoin for an America First strategic reserve. Oh, no, 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 not the shit coins. Donald Trump is not a Bitcoin maximalist. He just rubs elbows with them. So, what happens when, as first reported by the New York Post on Thursday, the creators of Solana, Ripple's XRP, and Circle's USDC convinced Trump to consider going beyond a Bitcoin only strategic reserve by establishing an America First version that includes their coins? For many, the initial response is outrage. After all, if some crypto pundits insist that a Bitcoin reserve would be detrimental to the dollar, what what more a crypto reserve with coins that are even less decentralized than Bitcoin? A federal crypto portfolio where the government manages multiple coins and tokens could turn out to be a good idea, but the strategic Bitcoin reserve, as described by Republican Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis, implies using Bitcoin the same way gold was previously used to back the US dollar. Such a reserve is controversial enough with Bitcoin as its sole asset. Adding less established coins that are still heavily influenced by their creators should be even less palatable, but many are optimistic, prematurely or not, including none other than Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse. With the largest capital markets finally embracing crypto and talk of crypto strategic reserves, a step function change in adoption is closer than you think, Garlinghouse said at the CFC St. Moritz conference on Thursday, referencing the rumor. Solana and Ripple were both up 2.4% and 5% over 24 hours, respectively, at the time of writing. Bitcoin dipped marginally by 0.1% over the same period, according to data from CoinGecko. The shitcoinery starts. So won't be shocked if that's what we end up with, but whatever. It's not really going to affect Bitcoin in the long run. So we just continue to stay humble and stack sats. All right, next up is from CoinDesk. This article was published on January 15th. Let's see. Since MicroStrategy is targeting a $2 billion perpetual preferred stock offering. Since MicroStrategy became a Bitcoin treasury company in August 2020, it has used three primary instruments to acquire Bitcoin: cash on hand, at the market offerings, and convertible bond offerings. MicroStrategy's next method of raising capital is to buy Bitcoin through perpetual preferred stock, which was announced to the market on January 3rd. MicroStrategy has announced a capital raise of $2 billion through one or multiple offerings, according to Benchmark. Benchmark hosted a recent investor meeting with MicroStrategy executive chairman Michael Saylor at the ICR conference in Orlando to discuss the perpetual preferred stock offering. A perpetual preferred stock typically has no fixed maturity date and continues indefinitely unless the company chooses to redeem it or put a maturity date on it. Shareholders of the stock receive fixed dividend payments but have no voting rights. The company may have the right to buy back the stock at a predetermined price after a specific date. In the case of a liquidation event, perpetual preferred stockholders are paid before common stockholders but after debt holders. Perpetual stock is an attractive instrument due to a lack of set maturity date, unlike MicroStrategy's convertible bonds, where some are already in the money and eligible for conversion. Convertible bonds tend to have a tenor of approximately 4 to 8 years, Saylor said at the conference. According to the note, Saylor said that the perpetual preferreds were advantageous due to the extended duration. The instrument works as an embedded indefinite call option in addition to a lump sum principal payment. The company would benefit as it would be less fragile due to the extended duration of the capital structure. According to Benchmark, the perpetual preferred stock could achieve a mid-single digit yield with low volatility and no options market, the opposite to a convertible bond. Perpetual preferreds would be attractive to big institutions like pension funds and banks as they would receive a stable and fixed dividend payment. Although the terms of the perpetual preferred stock have yet to be announced, MicroStrategy said the offering will be coming sometime in the first quarter. The terms of the offering are likely to include dividend payments, convertibility to Class A common stock, and provision of redemption of shares, according to the MicroStrategy press release on January 3rd. Benchmark maintains its buy rating on MicroStrategy with a price target of $650. As of Monday, MicroStrategy purchased a further 2,530 Bitcoin, taking total holdings to 450,000 Bitcoin. Next week, MicroStrategy's special meeting for shareholders will take place on January 21st. Investors will vote on increasing the authorized Class A common stock and preferred stock. MicroStrategy's Q4 earnings call is set for February 4th, for those of you that are interested in MicroStrategy. What is it? Michael Saylor's quote: "The only thing better than Bitcoin is more Bitcoin." Okay, this next article is from, and final article is from Bitcoin Magazine. And I thought with all the negative news around California, maybe here's a little good news. California is working towards embracing Bitcoin. According to a press release sent to Bitcoin Magazine, an Office of California Assembly member, Republican Philip Chen, has appointed Proof of Workforce, a Santa Monica based nonprofit helping workers, unions, pensions, and municipalities with education based Bitcoin adoption to work on a variety of Bitcoin related initiatives and help with drafting an official bill for an upcoming legislative session. As to where and how Bitcoin and digital assets get into the trajectory of California, much is undetermined, said Chen. What is certain is that this industry is growing in adoption every day, with Bitcoin serving as a global network and asset representing $2 trillion in value. Therefore, it's important we take a meaningful look into its role in the great state of California. Proof of Workforce, led by its founder, Dom Bay, will be advising Chen's policy team working on education and community engagement and researching how Bitcoin can support and rebuild California's infrastructure and communities. Bitcoin's genesis story has deep roots in California, commented Bay. A huge part of that genesis story is an innovative network designed to protect the time, energy, and value of everyday working people. Bitcoin isn't partisan, it's uniquely Californian. This isn't Proof of Workforce's first time helping onboard governments in California to Bitcoin. Last summer, Proof of Workforce partnered with the city of Santa Monica to open an official Bitcoin office. Since opening, the office has seen an overwhelming amount of interest, according to the city's mayor, Lana Negrete. Santa Monica's city manager has also stated that other cities have reached out to learn more about their Bitcoin endeavors. Mass adoption starts with initiatives like this. Bitcoin adoption within California's government is beginning, and with the United States embracing Bitcoin under President Trump, it is very likely that the adoption of this asset within the state government will continue over the coming years. Over the years, I've watched Don Bay and Proof of Workforce on board careers in government, firefighter unions in America, El Salvador, and Africa, workers and more to Bitcoin. They're doing it right by helping these organizations buy and hold their own Bitcoin keys, making sure they are all properly educated on not just Bitcoin, the asset, but Bitcoin, the network as well. One by one, Proof of Workforce is making real change that impacts daily lives. If you're not following Bay and Proof of Workforce on X, you should be. After talking with Dom personally, they are working on a lot of exciting initiatives that you'll want to hear about, so stay tuned. And I totally agree. He's doing a great job and has just been a great, great part of the Bitcoin community. So hats off to Don Bay. Keep up the great work. All right. And then I wanted to highlight this week's featured post on the Bitcoin Fortress Substack: Freedom Under Fire, the 2025 Laws Redefining Travel and Privacy. Don't always write about Bitcoin. Sometimes, quite often, I write about freedom and liberty. So check that out. There'll be a link in the show notes if you're interested. And I will next we'll go over the weekly top boosts on Fountain. Once again, at God's Death with 536 sats. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your support. And with that, I will thank you all for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please like and leave a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss an episode. You can also follow my Substack. It's at bitcoinfortress.substack.com. And you can follow me on Nostr. I am Nostr only. My NPub is in the show notes, along with everything else that we went over this week. And with that, I will talk to y'all next week. Bye bye.